Hello, friends. Welcome to the Global Leadership Podcast. This is a community where leaders of all sorts come together to grow and expand their influence in healthy and holistic ways. Before we jump in, I wanted to let you know that May 7th is the final day of our super early bird sale for the Global Leadership Summit. If you've gone, you know. The summit is the can't miss leadership event of the year. And this summer, we've got some amazing speakers lined up. We're going to hear from legendary Nick Saban, former head coach of Alabama's Crimson Tide football team. We're going to hear from Christine Kane, the founder of the A21 Project, and one of the most passionate and inspiring people I have ever heard. You'll also hear from John Acuff, who is going to ignite you to kickstart remarkable in your life. You're going to learn, you're going to be challenged, and you're going to be inspired. And to get your very best price on the summit, get your tickets by May 7th at globalleadership.org/summit. That is globalleadership.org/summit. So back to today's episode. This month on the podcast, we're focusing on holistic well-being. As leaders, it's really easy to get stuck on the treadmill of nonstop activity. I know that it's really easy for me to do that. There's always another meeting, another fire to be put out that causes us to put our own well-being and sometimes our sanity on the back burner. But we all know that's not good strategy for long-term success. That is the fast path to burnout. So today I'm chatting with David Ashcraft, President and CEO of the Global Leadership Network, on how to stay healthy long-term. We're going to cover things like the fallacy of a well-balanced life, the importance of specialization, and pausing for the long haul. There are so many gems in this conversation that will help you stay grounded and well. So let's dive in together. Hey, David.
Hey, Whitney. We actually get to be face-to-face today and in person, which is fun.
This is very fun. We actually get to be in person and have like a real conversation.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to this. So.
I know. I am too. So this episode, this whole month, we're focusing on holistic well-being.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful. So, but I know in your career, you have watched a lot of leadership journeys and your own leadership journey. So can you help us? What have you seen in leaders that have sustained their leadership over the long haul? Have you noticed any patterns or rhythms in their life or your life that has helped them in a leadership journey?
Man, so Whitney, I don't know that this is one that I would say I excel in as far as holistic
well-being. Yeah, it's a
Obviously,
big word.
I can't even say it or remember it. So, it's challenging because in ministry, it doesn't. So I'll back up and just say, I think there's a fallacy that a lot of people look for where they want a well-balanced life. And we'll hear about a balanced life as though somehow we can have all these plates spinning at the same time and everything is just perfectly smooth and easy. And that's not been the case for me. For me personally, there are highs and lows. There are times that you run and you run hard. And then you have to take a little bit of a step back and catch your breath again. And so it ebbs and flows. And so this is a challenging one. I think for all leaders, it was always, and it still is a challenge for me.
Yeah. How did you as a leader, if it was ebbing and flowing, which I think we can all relate to, we know we're in summit season. We are running towards summit season. So do you put some rhythms inside of your life to make sure you're spending time with your wife or spending time with your family? How do you tend to look at your schedule that way even?
Yeah, so I think prioritizing is real important. So for me, it was obviously God first, and that means a lot of different things to different people. But it was making sure I had my time with God. It was also time with Ruth and the kids. So that was hugely important for me. And where they were very gracious to me would be if I was in a season that I was extremely busy. They would allow me to go hard for several days, but then they knew that I would always make a priority of them, where if I was going hard for several days or several weeks, then I would take time to make sure we made that up on the back end or beforehand, knowing those seasons are coming. And that's the nice thing. I mean, so often we know when those seasons are coming. We know the summit's coming. And so we can plan, we can prepare, and I can put lots and lots of extra hours in ahead of time until that season passes. But then that also gives me the liberty then to also take some time off on the back end to make sure we're making up for that. So it never was a smooth, steady thing. And I think the challenge is I don't know anybody that's excelled in any walk of life that had a balanced life where everything was perfectly balanced all the time. I mean, that actually goes against the definition of somebody that's an expert. And to be an expert, you're going to have to put a lot of extra time into something that you become an expert in. And so you're out of balance right there. And so it's an interesting challenge.
I love that. And I think that speaks to generations so uniquely because I think different generations heard different messages around balance. And when you're talking about balance, I don't know if you've ever seen, I remember as a little girl going to Marine World in California. And there was this acrobat who would put plates on a stick and spin them around, and you're always oohing and you're always awing, and then
they all fall. Yeah, exactly.
They all fall down. And so I know that there's people listening right now that they're stretched too thin. They feel like their life is spinning out of control. And maybe it is. Maybe they are in that intense season of running really hard. What would you, if you were sitting down as their pastor, how would you sit with them and say, hey, let's reevaluate this season? How can we do this season a little bit differently? What would you say to that person?
Well, some of it I would say, Whitney, make sure you're doing the right things and make sure that you're focused on just a few things, not everything. And so often we try to do, and we think we can be great at everything, and we're not. None of us are. And so figuring out what are my strengths, what do I want to lean into where I can make the biggest contribution in the organization or whatever it is I'm working on, and then realize there are other things that I'm not good at, or I might think I'm good, but somebody else could be better. And so what are the few things that I only can do and really focus on those? And that changes in our seasons of life. And, to your point, I think when we're younger, we think we need to be good at everything and we want to be great at everything. And yet if we try to be a generalist, so my opinion,
I love your opinion. Let's go.
I think at some point you've got to specialize and say, this is what I think I'm really good at. And then I'm going to specialize on that. And all of a sudden I'm going to be out of balance because I'm specializing, but that's balance and specializing don't go together necessarily. And so then it's really focusing on that, being great at that one thing or those few things that I can make the biggest contribution in. It doesn't mean you totally throw everything else out, but you realize I'm not going to be able to give the same amount of time or attention to those things.
I think that's so important. So, and one thing that you're saying in there that I think about the behavior. So at the GLN right now, you're doing such a great job leading our team in values and behaviors. And if we're going to start owning what we're really good at, that takes vulnerability. At least I feel like when I get with my team and we're looking at all of our lists of to-dos and I think I can't do that all. And not only, like, sometimes you don't want me to do 5 of those things. And I've learned how to be vulnerable also because you've given permission as our leader to say, hey, lean into these things. And so have you noticed that too in your leadership journey, like the vulnerability to just be able to say, this isn't my thing, but this is my thing. How has that felt for you? How have you learned that along the way?
Well, so early in my career, I built a team around me of people that I felt like were specialists, and I didn't want a lot of generalists because I think sometimes with a lot of generalists, you get just kind of it's there, but it's not great. And so I thought, let's bring people that have the capacity to become great in their specific roles. And I would challenge them as they came onto the team and say, I want you to be so good at this that people from around the state, around the country, are eventually going to come to you to figure out how to do your job because you're so good at it. What that meant for me then is I didn't have to excel at everything because you're going to excel in your area and somebody else is going to excel in theirs. And so where I needed to excel is in helping you be the best you could be. And then there were other things that I could do real well. And, all of us, pride, we think we can all do it better. And maybe I can, but I can't because I don't have the time to do it. And so in my role specifically, there were some things that I was hanging on to, and I realized people were missing out because I didn't have the time to give to it. Even though if I had the time, I think I could have done great at it, but I didn't have the time. And so I had to give it away to somebody else who had the time and they became great at it. And so a lot of it is being humble enough to say, yeah, other people can do it probably as well or even better than me, and being okay with that.
Would you say, because I think that's even something I'm continuing to learn in my leadership journey, gathering the specialists around you, really unleashing them and empowering them and building trust as a team. David, you've had a successful career. You got to see God. You partnered with God to build this beautiful church. You're now CEO of the GLN. Would you say that this has been one of the core parts of you building teams, recognizing this is who I am,
this is the people that I'm building a team with. Would you say that's one of your pillars of success that kind of unleashed you guys?
Oh, I would definitely think so, Whitney. Where if you think you've got to do it all, if I think
Right.
I've got to do it all, it's limited to my capacity, it's limited to my time,
Yeah.
my energy, and things like that. And then everybody else is just kind of waiting on me to perform.
Mhm.
Whereas if I can put specialists in place and do everything I can to help them excel,
Mhm.
then I think it's unlimited the potential. Now, I do think one of my roles as well, though, as somebody that's working with specialists, is to be the gatekeeper to what they're doing and
Okay.
have to say no a lot and say, you're getting off track. And so I've got to make sure they're staying in line, going the direction they need to go,
Yeah.
and keeping them focused. And so one of our values was always, is this best or is this good? And if it's good, then let's not do it, because that's oftentimes good is the biggest enemy of best
Yeah.
and excellence. And so,
Yeah.
so one of my jobs I felt like was to be the gatekeeper and say no to an awful lot of things and say, I'm glad you're thinking about that. That's a good idea, not the best idea. And so I don't want you to go that direction.
Yeah. Man, I mean, now, but are you a people pleaser? You're not.
No.
I'm the people pleaser. So no.
Yeah.
No is a language, but for the people pleasers, it's important to recognize no is an important word for us to be able to say and use, not because we're limiting them, but because we really want to be able to move in the right direction. And so I think that becomes really, really important.
Well, and I think by you saying no to them sometimes, Whitney, it allows them to become really, really good at what they're doing, to become great at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if you say no, then if you don't say no, you think maybe you're doing them a favor by not saying no to them, but what you're actually doing is limiting them from reaching the full capacity that they could in their areas. So, So, when I think of holistic,
Mm-hmm.
what was the
Well-being.
word? Well-being. Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
I mean, it's those kind of things. But, where you struggle is just being careful where, okay, physically, am I staying
Right.
the way I need to be?
Mhm.
So in my busiest times, that's when I'm the worst at eating well, exercising. And so I can guarantee you I'm going to put on 20 pounds during busy times because I let those things go. And that's not a good thing.
Right.
That's just reality for
Right.
me
Yeah.
when you get busy. And so I think if you can get in rhythms and stay in them. One thing I was going to say, Whitney, I think oftentimes too, when we're starting out, we think I've got to give everything I have right now to this experience
Mhm.
as though there'll be no other experiences in the future. And after a while, you realize, okay, this is real important. I need to do my best, but there'll be another day. In the church world, there'll be another Sunday. There'll be another Easter. There'll be another Christmas. In the summit world, there'll be another summit next year. In the business world, there'll always be another season. And so just being careful that we don't burn ourselves out in that one experience. And we even saw that with fundraising, where the first time we were raising funds for a big capital campaign. And I remember telling people, sitting down with people and challenging them to give and say, give the biggest gift you've ever given in your life, which the first time it was real fun to say that. Then you kind of realize, oh, now we've got another campaign
10 years
3
down
years
the
later.
road.
Well, it's 3 years down the road.
The next biggest
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah. So at some point you realize, okay, I can't keep saying that.
Right.
But it's that way even on our lives. You can't keep saying this is the biggest event I'll ever experience, because it's not. You'll have another big one later. And so pacing yourself, I think, is real important.
That's really good. And I love where this conversation went, David. I think it's really important because you talked so much. We talked about rhythms, and there's so much out there right now about self-help. Like the noise is so loud. But I love knowing that in your life and what you've noticed and what you've seen is, okay, I'm going to keep rhythms. Sometimes I might fall off. I might eat a brownie or 5. It's okay.
I wish it was just 1 or 5. Yeah.
But I love that where you have maintained pace is, one, prioritizing, communicating well with your family and the people you care and love about. But then, and I see this in you so much in working alongside you, knowing who you are and how God has wired you and designed you, and then unleashing leaders, which means sometimes saying no, in their lanes as well. And so I think that is such a good word. It's not just like, if you do these 5 things, you're going to be successful. If you recognize your wiring, unleash people around you, you will have more well-being. I love that. So thank you for giving us that perspective, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Can I just say, Whitney, too, also not thinking you've got to respond to every situation. And so what I see so many leaders right now doing is anything happens in our society, they feel like instantly they've got to get on social media and respond or say something about it. And I actually think that's a foolish way to operate, because so often we don't know all the facts when something first happens. And so we end up getting ourselves in situations and talking about situations that we have no knowledge of or no expertise of. And so just slowing down. So again, that's back to that pace. Slow down, think about what you're doing, and breathe, take a deep breath, and realize tomorrow will come too, and you can make comments tomorrow.
Yeah.
But don't succomme to the
You
pressure
could make
of reacting
comments
right
in
away.
your own mind. We we could all just keep our comments inside of our mind and we would be okay.
Life would be better, wouldn't it?
Life would be a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I like that too, David, because it's just about, like you said, it doesn't always have to be the best. You don't always have to be the expert. I am not the expert on everything that's going on culturally, but I am an expert in a few things.
Right.
And in those spaces, maybe I can speak up.
Exactly.
But other spaces, listening is a really powerful tool.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, thanks so much for joining this conversation, David. This was really great.
Thanks, Whitney.
So good.
Hey again, friends. I loved the perspective that David brought into holistic well-being. I think that's why it's so important for us to hear from a variety of different people and perspectives so that we can stay balanced. I know I'm going to be thinking about how I can be a gatekeeper for my team so that we are focused not just on the good, but the very best. But what stood out to you? What ideas are you going to be chewing on? I want to challenge you to think about one takeaway from today's episode that you can apply to your own leadership. Coming up next week, we have an amazing conversation with Arthur C. Brooks, a Harvard professor and happiness expert. So make sure you tune in next week. Thank you again for joining us today. And one final reminder, on May 7th, it is the final day of our super early bird sale for the Global Leadership Summit. To get your very best price on the summit, make sure to get your tickets today at globalleadership.org/summit. That's globalleadership.org/summit. I'm so glad you're a part of this community because when the leader gets better, everyone wins.